This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Good evening and welcome to WAAY 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Doviet. Tonight we're taking your calls and questions all about injuries. Any kind of injuries, car accidents, but particularly we're going to focus on work-related injuries. Any kind of an injury case deals with two kind of questions. Is somebody else responsible for what's happened to you? And how badly hurt are you? So we're going to be answering questions tonight. Call in your questions all about injuries. The 31 Law Call number 256-536-0077. You can also email a question. You can email any kind of legal question any day of the week. You send it to lawcall@waaytv.com, and when we get to a show that's on point, we pull out your questions, and we've got some of your email questions for you tonight. Getting started tonight, Heath Brooks is here from Timberlake and Lee. Good to have you here.
Very nice to be here, Sharon.
We are starting with tonight's You Make the Law Call. We've got video that we've pulled from YouTube, and it's always interesting. We run this past lawyers that do these kind of cases. So let's show you this one. In some cases, it's hard to tell who's at fault. It's hard to tell who the problem is. Okay, not in this particular case. This Camaro. Watch what happens. There is no question who's going to be at fault at what happens. He gets off to a slow start. Hang on. Thank goodness he's going to be. Here we go.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank goodness that truck didn't hit him on the way out. There's no question that he caused it himself. He's swirling around. He's acting a little goofy, and he's not wearing a seatbelt.
No, he's not wearing a seatbelt.
Is this a kind of? Is there a personal injury case to be had here?
Well, in short, probably not.
Okay.
You know, in the state of Alabama, we have some pretty stringent rules against an injury that you cause yourself to you. Now, there is a type of insurance he may be able to take advantage of.
Really?
Medical payments coverage. He may be. It doesn't matter who's at fault for an injury.
Even if you're the bozo that could have prevented.
Even if you're at fault. But one thing that is important in the state of Alabama, though, is that whether or not you are wearing your seatbelt, if someone else causes your injury, then it is not relevant for a jury to even hear that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because he could have prevented all that. And,
yeah.
We've got a great expert. You've brought along somebody to help answer questions tonight.
That's right. A good friend of mine, Freddie Rubio, is here from down in Birmingham. He's with Rubio Law Firm. Freddie and I went to law school together and have kept in touch and been good friends for all of those years. So, Freddie, it's really great to have you here to help us out tonight.
Well, buenas noches. Thank you for having me, Heath and Sharon. I'm grateful to be here, and I look forward to listening to every question and help out.
And you especially deal with some workers' comp, work-related sort of injuries. Talk to us a little bit about when does somebody who's hurt on the job, hurt at work, need to actually have a lawyer?
Right. It's very basic. If you are ever injured while working, give us a call. Give us a call and we can help you navigate through your benefits, whether it's medical payments, whether it's TTD, what we call is temporary total disability payments, whether it's something beyond workers' compensation, we can help you. So if you're injured at work, just give us a call and we can help you navigate through those benefits.
What would be the difficulties for somebody that that doesn't speak the language particularly? Because you speak Spanish as well, right? And you help a lot of Spanish-speaking clients. What are some of the challenges that you see with your clients?
Right. So, you know, regardless of your immigration status, you have a right. If you are injured at work, you have benefits under workers' compensation and under other benefits. So it doesn't matter your immigration status, whether you speak English or not, you can have benefits if you're injured at work.
I've had a few cases with clients that don't speak English, and it does add a layer of challenge to trials.
It does, and you know, these workers' compensation cases can be pretty complicated as well. Sometimes, you know, under the Alabama law, you're limited by what you can claim in a particular workers' compensation case by the workers' compensation statute.
Okay.
But sometimes, if you're in a workers' compensation type of case and somebody else can be responsible that is not your employer, then you can take advantage of that. And I believe that Freddie had a situation like that most recently. Freddie?
Right, correct. So sometimes employees are afraid of bringing a claim against their employer. But sometimes employers want a lawyer that is representing the employee to bring a claim against a third party. Why? Because then the third party, the employer gets to subrogate or gets reimbursement from the third party. So sometimes it's a product that is really the cause of the injury, or maybe a co-employee. And if the employee recovers money from the third party, that is a defective product or a co-employee, then the employer gets reimbursement for all the benefits that the employer had to pay for medical benefits or time off from work.
And you had a case with a co-employee that was part of the problem. What was your case? What happened?
Right. In our case, in Shelby County, what happened was that this employee was working on a plastic extrusion machine. And this plastic extrusion machine had some rollers. And unfortunately for this lady, she got pulled into the machine and passed away and died. Wow. And what happened was that a co-employee removed a safety device, a device that would have prevented this death. And we filed a suit not only for workers' compensation, but also for a third party, for a co-employee. Then we were able to get a successful result for the employee's family.
Thank goodness.
You know, and that's one of those things with workers' compensation cases. Whenever you have a workers' compensation case, it's critically important that you talk to a lawyer, because there can be, you know, the first thing you think when you get hurt on a job is, how am I going to pay my bills? Who is going to pay for my wages? I got to take care of my family. I got to put food on my table. And the last thing you're thinking about is talking to a lawyer. But what you really need to do is, the first thing you need to think about is talk to a lawyer. Because when you go to a lawyer, one of the things that we look for is who else can be responsible for your injury. Because you're so limited under the workers' compensation statutes in Alabama about what you can recover. You can recover 66 2/3% of your wages for a particular period of time. You may be able to get some temporary disability payments while you're not working. And then maybe you have lost a percentage of your body and you can get a permanent disability amount that is never enough for what your injuries are, particularly if they're substantial. So it is important that you talk to a lawyer who will look at all these other avenues that you could potentially walk down, like a product failure, or was some other company responsible? You know, those sorts of things that are oftentimes overlooked. And you move on with your life, and you move on with your injuries, and you move on with all your responsibilities, and then somebody else could have been responsible that could have helped you through that hard time.
We've got callers waiting. We've got Irma on the line with a question. Hi, Irma. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Hi. I have a question. I fell at one of the stores here.
Okay.
And I was just wondering what procedure should I follow? I was injured, and they took an incident report, and I don't like some of the answers I received when I asked the questions.
Gotcha. If you fall at a store, all right, Freddie, if she falls at a store, what should she be thinking about for a lawsuit?
Right. Whether it's at a store or at work, it is incredibly important that you call a lawyer immediately. Here's what happens. When you fall at a premise or at a store or at work, the employer or the store owner is immediately notifying the insurance company, and they put their lawyers to work immediately. And it is so important that you contact a lawyer so we can send a preservation letter. For example, to ask that any video recording, any witnesses, any employees that were working on that day, that we preserve any evidence that is available to us. Because while you are getting medical treatment, while you go to the doctor, the other side, whether it's the store or the employer, is also already working on the defense. So it's important that while you're getting medical treatment, you get one of your loved ones to come and call us so that we can preserve evidence and we can start working on your case.
How long do stores normally keep that kind of video stuff?
Typically 30 days. So most stores have a closed circuit video recording. So, it's generally a policy and procedure of the store, whether it's, a big box store like Walmart or, one of Kroger or whatever, or a smaller store. Typically it's a 30-day time period. So Freddie's absolutely right. We call it a spoliation letter, and we send it immediately and say, you retain all this information because evidence is like water. It evaporates. But, the basic thing that a store owner, any premises owner, they have a responsibility to maintain their premises in a reasonably safe condition and to warn you of hazards that they knew about, should have known about, or they created. That's the law in the state of Alabama. And all of those things, as a plaintiff, as a person who was injured, you have to prove. And so oftentimes the only way we can prove that is by the video recording that the store has, or by the witnesses that the store lets get out of the door and doesn't give you the telephone number or the information. So it is critically important that you get that evidence retained, particularly in a case when you are hurt on someone else's premises or on someone else's property, because those types of cases, they do oftentimes lead to lawsuits and they can be very difficult. So it's important to talk to a lawyer in that regard.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back answering more of your questions all about injuries. Stay with us. Excellent.
You're watching WAAY 31 Law Call, where lawyers come to help. Your rights, your calls, live. Hosted by family law attorney Sharon Doviet, with the personal injury attorneys of one of the Valley's most respected law firms, Timberlake and League. Featuring the knowledge of managing partner Michael Timberlake, with millions of dollars awarded to his clients, and the experience of attorney Will League, a strong courtroom fighter known for his commitment to winning, and the fellow partners of Timberlake and League Heath Brooks and William Meservey. This is WAAY 31 Law Call.
Welcome back to 31 Law Call. I'm Sharon Dovey. Got with me in the studio tonight Heath Brooks. We've also got Freddie Rubio, who is with the Rubio Law Firm out of Birmingham, and we've been talking about workers' comp kind of cases with people being hurt on the job.
Right.
And we were also talking about the challenges that you can have with someone, a client that doesn't speak English. Well, William Meservey, also with Timberlake and League,
Right.
has to deal with this some too. William, thank you for joining us by Zoom tonight. You guys have got a special difficulty with sometimes having clients that don't speak English. How do you deal with that, and why is that a problem? William?
Yeah, so, it can be an issue when it comes time to testify, whether that be in a deposition format or whether it be in front of a jury. You'd have to use a translator, and you have to rely upon them to properly present in a different language than where it came from. And it can be challenging. And so, sometimes you keep it very simple, but not every story can be told in a simple way. So, it does require some nuance as far as how you're going to tackle those issues.
Does it matter who chooses the interpreter? Freddie, I'm sure you want to be the one that chooses the interpreter, right, if it's your client?
Correct. So if my client is testifying, I want to make sure that my client's testimony is being translated or interpreted correctly. So I normally get to set who gets to interpret. Unfortunately, in Alabama, we have a finite number of interpreters. And they're great interpreters in Alabama, but it just is harder to get them. But look, when they're in the courtroom, I want my clients to use as much English as they know. Mm-hmm. So normally I push through with some English, and then we have to rely on interpreters to get the testimony right, because jurors sometimes get frustrated having to listen to a person that doesn't master English in a proper way. So they rather listen to the testimony through an interpreter.
Do you have some prejudice going on there a little bit too? William, Freddie, have you guys seen some prejudice against your client if they're not able to speak English?
You hope not.
Go ahead, William.
Yeah, I mean, you hope that that's not what you're seeing, but that's always something as an attorney that crosses your mind. And during the jury selection process, you're going to try to strike those jurors. You're going to try to get them out of your jury pool, and so that they don't make it all the way down. So part of that is doing your proper vetting with jurors. And then, like Freddie was saying, you can lose people and lose their ability to focus and concentrate and listen to a conversation that's really coming from an interpreter sometimes. And so, like Freddie said, you want to know that person, you want to have experience with them, and you want to be able to trust them.
But more than anything, I trust Alabama jurors. I mean, they know that they know what the case is really about. It's not really about prejudice, and it's not about English or Spanish. It's about negligence. And jurors in Alabama, and we have recovered millions of dollars for Spanish-speaking clients, where jurors in Alabama know that somebody's negligence has caused the injury to an English speaker or a Spanish speaker. It doesn't matter. So we trust jurors in Alabama.
Okay, who pays for all that? So interpreters and all of this stuff, who pays for that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming it's costly. Freddie, who pays for the interpreter?
Whoever needs it. If I'm going to put up a client that doesn't speak English and they want to speak through an interpreter, I get to pay for it. If the defense counsel or the opposing counsel wants to put up my client, they need to pay. But at the end, you know, it's about the jurors to be able to understand what our clients are saying.
Okay, in general, expenses. How does that work with a personal injury case? So if your client doesn't have the money to hire a lawyer, or they don't have the money for experts and interpreters, what do you do?
You know, cases can get expensive, but most of the folks that do Freddie's and mine and William's work, clients don't owe us a nickel unless we recover for them. And you know, that may be inclusive of hiring an expert from potentially all over the United States of America if you need it, or hiring interpreters, taking depositions of doctors, meaning sworn statements of doctors, or taking depositions of witnesses, traveling wherever you need to travel, and that can get costly. And that's something that we as the lawyers bear the burden of. And if we recover, generally we get our expenses back out. But if we don't recover for our clients, we eat our expenses. So we jump right in the basket with the client. We take that risk in the hopes that we can get a good recovery.
Okay. All right. William, thank you very much for being with us tonight. We'll let you head back out. We've got callers waiting. Is it Elise or is it Louise on the line? Louise is on the line. Hi, Louise. Thanks for calling. What's your question tonight?
Well, I hope I say this right.
Okay, let's hear it.
How long does it take after deposition for a personal injury case to go into mediation?
Okay. And you got two things there. We may have to explain what depositions are and what mediations are.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So let's take this in turn. Typically speaking, when you're talking about a deposition, you're talking about an out-of-court sworn statement with a court reporter taking down everything that is said and questions that are being asked by the attorneys. That's generally one of the very first steps after a lawsuit is filed, is exchanging information and taking depositions to learn what each other's positions are. In other words, there's no Perry Mason moments in trials now like there used to be. We all have the facts through depositions and exchanging information. Hopefully, after you get through with the deposition, you can get into a mediation. And Freddie, tell us about a mediation.
Mediation is where a third-party neutral tries to settle a case between the plaintiff and the defense. And this is a person that normally has had experience in trying case or is a former judge and tries to say, hey, look, based on my experience, the case should settle at this amount. And that person tries to bring the parties together. But look, what I tell my clients most of the time, cases take time, and it depends on the defense counsel, on the plaintiff counsel schedule, and on the court schedule. Overall, we try to prioritize the maximum recovery. If you call us, we try to maximize your recovery regardless of how long the case might take.
You know, that's an excellent point, Freddie. And one of the things about a mediation is sometimes you don't go to mediation. Sometimes you take depositions and information is revealed in the depositions that the other side just doesn't want to mediate with you. They don't want to try to resolve the case without going to a jury trial. Sometimes you take some depositions and you got to go take some more depositions. You got to take a doctor. So there's really no set time. And there is no set requirement unless a judge sometimes will order it, but there's no set requirement to mediate a case. Most cases nowadays do get resolved in a mediation, or a large percentage of them do. There's not as many jury trials as we used to have back in the day. Most of the time you go to a neutral party and you try to get them resolved. But there's no guarantee that you'll ever get to the mediation. And then when you get to mediation, there's no guarantee that you will actually resolve your case.
Okay, so you could mediate it and settle it. You could go to trial. A lot of cases do settle, though, right?
That's right.
Even without a mediator. What's the process for trying to get an insurance company to pay? How do you go about that, Freddie? What are some of the ways that you deal with that if it's not at a mediation? Can you just talk to them yourself as the attorney?
Well, when the cases go to mediation, it's normally because there's some issues. I mean, there's no guarantee that we will always win. So when you settle a case in mediation, basically you are eliminating all risk that a jury may decide the case against you. So mediating is a good way to eliminate all risk and get some money assured on your side.
And a mediation, if it doesn't work, then it just doesn't work. The judge never knows, right, what you talked about.
It's an all confidential process. Sometimes you are able to settle a case after mediation, just talking to the lawyers. You know, sometimes that can happen. Sometimes you can settle a case with an insurance company prior to ever filing a lawsuit, and you can go back and forth in the negotiations. The vast majority of cases settle without having to file a lawsuit, without going to court, without getting into mediation. And then I would say a large percentage that go into litigation after filing a lawsuit do settle at a mediation.
Okay, we're going to take a break. Be right back answering more of your questions all about injuries tonight. Stay with us. If you didn't get your questions answered tonight, here's how to get in touch with Freddie Rubio with the Rubio Law Firm out of Birmingham. 256-443-7858. Also check out rubiofirm.com. Here's how to get in touch with Heath Brooks and William Meservey with Timberlake and League. They are personal injury attorneys in Huntsville, so everything from car accidents to medical malpractice to workers' compensation cases. 256-536-0770 or 800-804-2502. The website is law-injury.com, and if you like them on Facebook, you can learn more about the law that way.
And Sharon Doviet, she practices family law, divorces, child custody, all things dealing with the family. Her telephone number is 256-539-7337, and you can reach her at www.sharonfamilylaw.com.
Thanks very much, Freddie, for coming up from Birmingham and being with us. So you guys know each other from Cumberland?
We do. We go back. We've been practicing now, what, 15 years, Freddie?
That's right. Thank you so much.
Seems like it was yesterday, doesn't it?
Glad to have you here. Thanks.
Thank you
for
so
your
much.
questions tonight, everybody. Good night.